Welcome to Lesson 5 in the series of lessons accompanying the textbook How to Program Effectively in Delphi for AS A-Level Computer Science. In this lesson we're going to tie together all of the things that we've covered in lessons 1 to 4, covering Pascal and then Object Pascal, and then event-driven programming, and then a desktop VCL application, and delving into the detail under the hood of Delphi so that we can hopefully understand how the Delphi integrated development environment pulls everything together and simplifies the process of making a desktop VCL application by hiding much of what we did in lessons 1 to 4 behind the scenes, so that we can be more productive in creating GUI applications, and then later on applications which use FileMonkey for mobile devices, tablets, the Mac OS, iPhones, Android phones, etc. I mean, one of the nice things about Delphi is the way that it has augmented Pascal and Object Pascal, extended it with other paradigms, and enabled free libraries to be added to the Delphi ecosystem. We're going to look at components and the different types of components, visual and non-visual, and then at the end of this lesson we're actually going to create a custom component and build it into the IDE so that we can select it from the samples component palette and place on a form, so that we have a tailored component to use at our disposal. Let's get started. Let's create a Windows VCL application. So File, New Windows VCL application. We'll change the name of the form to Form 1. Its caption will automatically change to Form 1. Let's select a button from the standard palette, add it to the form, Ctrl-C to copy it and paste 3 times so that we have 4 buttons. We'll align them vertically. Although their captions are all the same, they will actually be named button 1, button 2, button 3, button 4, as shown in the structure panel. Let's add 4 T-edit components. Do the same thing, copy the first one, paste it 3 times. So we have edit 1, edit 2, edit 3, edit 4. Let's select a label of type T label, copy and paste 3 times so that we have label 1, label 2, label 3, label 4. So we're adding components to the form, but they are of a different flavour. So we're now adding a T-data source 4 times, and this is a non-visual component, whereas the buttons, the edit boxes and the labels are visual components. We call visual components controls, and they're of type T control. Let's add another non-visual component, of type T timer, so it's timer 1, and we'll place it to the right of the first data source component. Just tidy up the form a little bit. Make sure that we selected form 1. And we're going to set its position when it launches to the center of the desktop. This won't happen in design mode, it will happen at runtime. So we'll save the project. And we'll save it in the new folder component list 1. And we'll change its unit name to component list unit .pas and save it, and its project name to component list project .dproj, short for Delphi project. Okay, let's run it and see what the form looks like. It launches in the center of the desktop because we specified that's what we wanted. Now notice that the 4 data source components in the timer are missing because they're non-visual components, so they will not appear at runtime, whereas the 4 buttons, the 4 labels and the 4 edit boxes do because they're visual components. We don't need public, private. Anything between the class and the end is public unless otherwise specified. Control Shift I to indent. We want to get the B of button 1 aligned with the A of class, and unfortunately, because we're tabbing 2 positions at a time, we can't achieve this, so we're going to have to manually. There are other ways of doing it, but I'm keeping it simple at this stage. Manually finish off the task. And I hope that the E of end will line up with the C of class. This is not Embarcadero house style, this is the author's own house style. So let's have a look at the source. We're going to add a directive to launch a console window alongside the GUI window. And we'll get rid of that blank line at the end. And now we'll return to the component list unit. Toggle to show the form 1. Make sure that form 1 is selected in the object inspector. We'll click on the events tab so that we can double click in the on click field to create an on click event handler. And we want to write to the console window so we want to check if sender is of type T form. Is this an operator that will check a match between sender and a class? and then we're going to cast sender as T form if it is of type T form. So that we can access the name field of the form, and if we click on the form, yes, sender actually holds a reference to the form1 object, and we drilled down into the name field of this form1 object. So sender will identify the particular object that is responsible for signaling the event. Okay, there is a VCL hierarchy, and it starts with T object, and then T persistent, which is derived from T object, T component is derived from T persistent, T control is derived from T component, and then the two types of T control, that's the T win control and the T graphic control. Now the T win control can receive input focus, and they can be parents to other controls. So examples are T button, T edit, T list box, T combo box, whereas T graphic control cannot receive input focus and they cannot be parents to other controls. For example, T label. So T graphic controls are used when we want to display something on the form. The two key advantages are T graphic controls don't use up system resources because they don't require a Windows handle, and they're a bit faster to redraw because they use the parents redraw mechanism. Okay, now we're going to have a go at counting the number of components on the form and differentiating between visual and non-visual components, and then differentiating between control components, which are graphic and or T graphic controls, and T control components, which are T win control. So I've already pre-prepared some code templates so that I can quickly post in number of T controls, number of T win controls, number of T graphic controls, number of T components, integer type, and we have a loop control variable I, so that we can loop through the components on the form. And I'll show you in a moment how to do this. So we want to initialize these variables. We can't do it inside the event handler because you can't initialize local variables, and these are local variables, so we have to do it actually in the body of the event handler. So I pre-prepared the check to see if the component currently is being expected is of type T button, or is of type T label, or is of type T edit, etc. Now, to iterate through the components on the form, we need to access the form object, and then we need to access a property called component count. So that stores a count of the number of components on the form. So we check to see if the particular component, the particular object, is of type T button with the is operator. And then we're going to change the caption, but first of all, having identified its T button, we have to cast it, because at the moment it's of type T object, so we have to cast it down to T button. We'll do something similar for the T-edit, but we'll actually blank the edit box. And we'll check to see if we have identified an object of type T control. Then we'll increment the counter number of T controls. We'll do something similar for T component, something similar for T win control, and something similar for T graphic control. So we're going to systematically check through all the components on the form and test to see what type they are, and then we will cast the form component to the matched type so that we can access the object's caption field or its text field. And then finally we'll write our totals to the console window. So we're going to click on the form to run the event handler. We've identified that there are 12 controls. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So controls are visual components. And now if we include the 4 data source components, which are non-visual, and the timer, that's another 5. So the total of components is 17. Now the number of T-win controls are those that can take the focus and can be the parent of other controls. That's 8. And there are 4 labels which are of type T graphic control because they cannot take the focus and they cannot be the parent of other components. Now, also notice that the event handler was designed to change captions. But what we're going to do now is we're going to borrow the form click event handler and assign it to the on-click event of button 1, so that when we click button 1 we run the form click event handler. Before that we do that, we're going to save. Sorry, I beg your pardon, we're going to open up the DFM form. And so we have a form object which will take up space in memory, and it will include space for the labels, buttons. And now we have added an on-click event which will use the form click event handler. And of course, form 1 will also use the form click event handler. And we'll do the same for button 2. We'll enable it to use the form click event handler and save the project. The DFM form was saved. So it is now out of sync with Notepad++. So we now need to click yes, so it's updated in Notepad window. And now if we look for button 2, we'll see that it now has an on-click property which is set to form click. Now we're just going to check to see if the sender is of type T button, and then we're going to write its name to the console window, and we're going to write its caption to the console window. So we're checking to see if the sender is of type T form or of type T button. Now that could be button 1 or it could be button 2. So if we click button 1, we see that the sender name is button 1 and its caption is button 1. But now if we do it again, the name is button 1 and the caption is button 5, because the form click event handler changes the captions of the buttons. So if we click button 2 with caption button 6, it's actually button 2 name, caption button 6. So if we click button 2, its caption changes to button 6 because the event handler does that. Button 1 changes to button 5, button 3 changes to button 7, and button 4 changes to button 8. So you can see how Delphi tracks the components placed on a form. So we say that a form is composed of components. So now we finish this application, so we're going to close it, and now we're going to move on to creating a custom component. So we go to components in the menu, we click new component, and then we select a VCL component, and we're going to make its ancestor T button. So we're going to base it on T button. So we're just going to search for the T button class, and we select it, click next. Right, the new class that we're creating is going to be called T another button, and we're going to place it in the sample palette, and we're going to create a unit for it with the name another button.paz. We're going to save it in a directory test, so we don't get it muddled up with the component list project that we just done. and we'll use the same search path. Right, now we're going to create the unit, and we've got a class T, another button, and now we've got a procedure called register with an implementation which is going to register this class in the registry of the machine. And we want to be able to call upon a procedure test when we create an object of this type. So we need to publish it so that it is available in the IDE. So if we just do Control-Shift-C, we will get the skeleton created in the implementation section, and all we're going to do is, when we call upon this test method, is just show a message, and the message will be hello world. Now, show message is found in the VCL.dialogues library unit. So we could do Control-Shift-A to add the unit. Delphi will automatically offer the VCL.dialogues unit for selection, but we'll just add it manually. So we'll save the unit. We'll just tidy it up, put it into house style. Get the P of private lined up with the A of class. Save it, and then we're going to close it. And now we're going to install the component. So we select Install Component from the component menu, and we select the unit that we've just saved, and we're going to install it into Delphi. And we choose a package to save it in, and we're going to save it into the test directory because the Embarcadero directory on C is read-only. Okay, so we've now created a DPK, which is a Delphi package file, and we're going to give it a description because this is quite important, because when we delve into the registry of the machine we will see that this description will appear. Okay, so we've now installed the component, so we'll save everything, and it's been compiled into a BPL file, another button.bpl, which is a DLL, a dynamic linked library, and it contains this another button.pas, so it contains our class definition and that class method test. So we're now going to create a Windows VCL application to see if we can find that new component, the custom button, in the samples palette, and we find T, another button. We can put it on the form, and we should be able to access its test method. So we double click to create an event handler, tidy up Control D, in house style formatting. Now we need to save this so that it can find the another button.pas unit, and if we save this in the test directory, so this is our VCL application, and so we'll save it as another button unit.pas and another button project.dproj. Now, although the underline hasn't gone away, if we now compile and run it, it will find the another button.pas unit. When you save without any body into an event handler, Delphi removes the event handler. So if we do Control space, we can actually find the another button 1 variable, and then if we type full stop, we get code completion. We can select the test method, so another button 1 is of type T another button, T another button is defined in another button.pas. We save it and we run it. Click on it and we get our show message, hello world. So this is a custom component that we've added to the component palette, to the samples page, and we can use it in a desktop VCL application. If we go into the registry of the machine, we're going to be hunting for that BPL, Dynamic Link Library, the another button project.bpl, because that's been registered in HKey current user software Embarcadero BDS 21 is Delphi 10.4 known packages. So we have a package, a Delphi package, which we've created and we compiled to a BPL. So let's just refresh. So these are all the dynamic link libraries that have been registered for Delphi, and amongst these, remember we saved it in a directory test, is another button.bpl. Sorry, it's the another button was the pass. Sorry, beg pardon, not the project. Sorry. So it's another button, which is the description that we added, and the unit is another button.pas containing the type definition. So I stand corrected. Next up, we're going to create a component with a published property which will appear in the object inspector. So we'll start with component, new VCL, next, and we're going to base it on T button, so we search for T button, so its ancestor component is T button, and we're going to place it on the samples page, and we're going to give it a unit name. We'll name the class T property button, and the unit name is property button.pas, and we'll save it in test. And we'll set the search pattern to be the test directory. Next, we're going to create a Delphi unit, so we finish, and there's our property button.pas unit, and the class name is tPropertyButton, and we're going to register that in the samples palette. Now we want to create a property, so we use the template name prop F and then press Ctrl J to get the live template. We'll change the name to property button, tab to the type field, property button value, or val, tab to the type field, change it to integer, and now we will have a published property button val, but it will actually correspond to a private field f property button val. And we'll just tidy up the indentation. So we now have it in preferred house style. So we need to save this, and then we'll close it because we've got to install the component So component, install component, and we select the unit file, which is property button.pas, and we'll save it into our own package. So we're going to create the package name, and save the new package in directory test. And we'll give the package name property button. It's a Delphi for Win32 package. We'll give it a package description. New property button. click Finish. And now it will compile the package and it will install it. And the package name is propertybutton.bpl, the compiled package, which is a DLL, and it's been registered in the registry of the machine. And it relies on these Delphi compiled packages, and it contains propertybutton.pas. So it contains the type definition. So we'll save all. And close. Now we'll have a look at the registry. So it's the H key current user, software Embarcadero BDS 21.0, which is Delphi 10.4, known packages, and we're going to be hunting for property button. Oh, that's another button. Misspell. And there's the property button.bpl. It's the DLL which exposes the class definition, or the type definition for the class. So we're going to create a Windows VCL application. I'm going to attempt to use that tProperty button class. So it's there in the samples page. If we double click it, we place an object of type tProperty button on the form. So it's based on tButton, so it looks like a button. And now if we look in the object inspector, we're looking for property button val, and there it is. So it's a type integer, so it's been initialized to 0. We'll change it to 6 in the object inspector. Now it appears in the object because we defined it in the published part of the class definition. So we should, if we create an event handler, an on-click event handler, we should be able to show the value of this new property. So we're going to concatenate the string property button value we'll just save just to make sure that the application can find property button.pas. So if we save it as property button unit.pas and property button project.dproj, in the test directory it should pick up property button.pas. So it can check the class definition. Oh, we've already got property button.proj from an earlier experiment, so I've added the new word to new, so it becomes new property button .dproj. So because this property value property button 1 dot property button val is integer, we need to convert it to string. So our object reference is property button 1, so we're referencing the object and then we're drilling into its property button val. And notice it's got access to all the properties that T button has access to. Not all of them are T button from the classes from which T button has been derived. So it's there exposed at the top of the list, property button val. So I just click on it, press return, and we've added it to the program. So we'll save all and run. So if we click on the button, indeed the property button value is 6, which is we set it to 6 in the object inspector. And that's the end of lesson 5. Next up, lesson 6.